Hi Gemma, lovely for you to join us.
Hello.
Can you just tell our young people kind of who are you and what do you do?
So my name is Gemma Hunt, and you will probably recognise me from being a kids' TV presenter. In fact, I've probably been presenting for the majority of your lives because this is now my 18th year working in kids' TV.
Oh, goodness. So, journey you've been on then, huge journey. So, tell us a bit about your faith journey.
So I grew up in the West Country, just down the road in Trowbridge, and went to a Baptist church called Bethesda. And my mum took me along there. My mum and dad separated when I was little, but mum always took me along to church. And I think it's probably a good way to get us out of the house and for her to have a bit of support and community, and also for me to have other children to play with because I was an only child at that time. And so going along to church was boring, to be honest. At first I didn't really understand why I was going. It was an old Baptist church with pews and it was cold, and I didn't understand what they were singing or praying or saying. And the Sunday school was really fun because it was an opportunity for me to be a bit mischievous. And I used to play around, and I was probably that naughty kid actually in Sunday school that was just a bit of a cheeky monkey to some of the Sunday school leaders. But I do remember learning lots, and we learned all the traditional stories, and I had a lot of respect for the stories and for Jesus, and it was kind of just what we did on a Sunday when I was with my mum. And then it got to time when I was about 11 when one of the youth leaders suggested that we all go on a summer camp, and it was down in Bridgewater. The camp's called Hill House. And so we went along to that for a whole week. So a week away from family and friends, going back down to Bridgewater. And there were about 4 or 5 of us from our church that went, and we got to camp out for a week. And there was this big house where we would have our meals and do different activities. There was a swimming pool there, lots of places to run around and play games. And it was great because it was organised by Christians, and it was an opportunity for young people who had faith and those who didn't to come together for a week in the summer to just have some fun and learn more about Jesus. And so I knew little bits from the times that I was listening at Sunday school. And so when I went to the summer camp, I sort of felt like I wanted to start taking it a bit more seriously. And we watched a film one night, and it was the film of the Passion of the Christ, so the story of Jesus' death and resurrection. And when I was watching Jesus there on the cross, all of a sudden I just had this real feeling in my heart that was for me, for all the nonsense that I'd been up to, for all the mischievous that I'd been up to. I was just really convicted that actually I needed to change my life around and start living it in a way that was going to bless others and honour him. And so then that's when I decided to give my life to Jesus, to become a friend of Jesus when I became a Christian. And I remember coming home after that week's camp feeling so excited and just buzzing. And my mum was at home in the garden hanging out the washing. And it was mum who had taken me along to church, so encouraged me in my faith. But then I said to her, "Mum, so at this camp, I became a Christian." And without even looking at me, she was pegging up the socks. And she was like, "All right, how long will that last?" And I was like, "Oh, okay. But you know what? I think my mum just knew me that well that she knew that I needed that bit of encouragement to take it seriously." So that's not to say that my faith has been based on proving my mother wrong all these years. It's actually just been the encouragement that I've needed to take it seriously. And I don't know what I would do without my faith now, because it is my backbone, it is my crutch, it is the thing that I depend on to keep me upright in difficult times. It's the thing that I lean on to get support when I just don't know what to do. It's the thing that I hold on to for hope when everything else around me seems hopeless. And so that has been my journey of coming to faith, and I'm still living it out every single day.
I'm going to ask you my really hard question. How, Charmaine, do you deal as a Christian, do you deal with societal norms? Oh, that's a hard one. Gemma, have a think about that. Was coming your way too. I think you've got to look to God for your way through, because society is very much into wealth, into self, into
It's all about me. And God isn't like that. God is all about us serving. He came to serve, not to be served. So we need to serve the people around us. We need to live differently to the people around us. We have to be that fish swimming the opposite way, so people can see a difference in us. So yeah, there are norms around, but not all the norms are good. So I think, yeah, if we keep our eyes focused on God, we can live the way He wants us to live, and then society norms can fit around that, the right ones, rather than we following everyone else in society. What do you think, Gem?
Yeah, I'm thinking then how there's scripture, isn't there, that says about how we need to be in the world, but not of the world. And so we need to be the kind of the square peg in the round hole, in a sense, because we need to stand out. We need to be different in society, because we're called to be salt and light in the communities around us. In fact, that was a prophetic word that I had that was spoken over me when I went to Soul Survivor, when it used to be down in Shepton Mallet when I was about 16. Then someone gave me this prophetic word from God that I would be salt and light in the dark place of the media. And so I took that as meaning, yeah, okay, I'm going to go into a world where there is a lot of expectations to be a certain way, where the norms are X, Y, and Z. But actually, God wants me to go in there and just be R, G, and Y, like completely different. He doesn't want me to go in and be like all the same as everybody else. So, and I think that there are really difficult times though with that, because we feel like in terms of being accepted, we need to fit in with those around us. We need to wear the right clothes. We need to have our hair a certain way. We need to be seen eating the right things or have a certain presence on social media. We need to feel like we need to fit into all those things. And I'm not saying that doing all those things is necessarily bad, but I think that where God calls us to stand out and to be different, we need to influence those spheres in a positive way, with His love, with His light, with His hope, rather than just blending into the background and looking like everybody else. Because a lot of the times as well, social norms aren't always biblical either. And so we need to make sure that we are, as Christians, standing by biblical truths, where we are honouring the 10 Commandments, like honouring our father and mother, and not using the name of God in vain, and keeping ourselves holy and saving ourselves for marriage in terms of sex. And so there are lots of things that socially we might feel we're drawn towards, but as Christians we need to really try and backpedal and hold on to God and trust that He's going to be the one that steers us through when we get difficult situations that are in front of us.
So who do you look to if you had some people like role models, people who you kind of look up to, and who have a faith as well? Who would those people be?
Well, I come from a family of fiercely Christian women. So there are some incredible role models on this screen right now who I'm looking at, who I love and admire so much. And so I respect you, Shah. I think you are an incredible woman. You always put God first. You honour Him with everything that you do. You have a real integrity in who you are. You've always taken that, not just through our family, but into the workplace. And something that you used to do that truly inspired me was when, as a midwife, you would pray blessing over babies when they were born with the parents' permission. And often these parents didn't have any faith. And yet you took your faith and you were praying on their behalf. And actually that's what Jesus does in heaven. He's always sat by God, on the right hand of God, praying on our behalf. So you were demonstrating that Christ-likeness in your workplace. So that really inspired me. So when I started working in TV, I would pray every time before I went on television, before I went in front of the camera, because I knew that I had to give God the first of everything. So you gave God the first day of this child's new life. I would always give Him the first of my breath when I'm talking on camera. So that's really inspired me. And so your mum, my nan, she's an incredible woman as well, incredible woman of faith, who has journeyed through the highs and lows of life, walking alongside a partner who didn't share her faith. And that was really inspiring as well. And I went through a season in my life where I was in a relationship with somebody who also did not share my faith. And that was really hard. And I think that being inspired by Nanny to keep going and to keep praying and to persevere was something that was really inspiring. Although, with all respect, actually, that relationship wasn't right for me, and God knew that. So when I came out of that relationship and my heart was broken, the first person I ran to was Nanny. I drove back from London, I came back to Chippenham, and I went to Nanny's house at goodness knows what time in the evening, knocked on the back door and floods of tears, and she just took me in. And it was so, family has really inspired me. And I've got a brilliant mentor as well, somebody who I've known probably for about 7 years now, and her husband is a TV producer, somebody that I worked with quite a few years ago. And so she's not necessarily in the TV industry, but she understands it an awful lot. And she's a mother, like I said, she's a wife, she's an author, so she gets words, and I work with words an awful lot in my line of work. But she's also really personable, a real homemaker, and she's got loads of books that she's written that I read, that even now I'm reading. And I find her really inspiring because she's just really honest about who she is and her faith. And she's had a difficult background as well. Like, she hasn't had life easy, but just seeing how she's drawn on her faith throughout that whole season in her life is, again, really inspiring to me. And it gives me kind of hope to keep pushing forwards when times look bleak or are tricky for me in my life. Because I see, like when we read the Bible, we see different biblical characters go through really tricky times and how God helps them through that in one way or another. Not necessarily always the way they want to have the outcome, but he helps them nonetheless. I see that in your life. I see that in Nanny's life. I see that in my mentor's life. I see that in the lives of people around me. So then that testimony, that story, gives me the hope to keep going with my life and my story when things seem like I don't know what to do.
So in this time of lockdown, I mean, it has been a really hard time for lots and lots of people. But there's been so many lovely stories through this of people finding faith and getting close to God. Have you got any stories about you or your family or friends or anybody who's had an experience during this lockdown period?
I feel like a lot of churches, like we're doing now, have embraced this whole new online platform for church, and how that has allowed lots of us to invite people to things that they wouldn't ordinarily come to, or whether we wouldn't feel confident inviting them to, because for whatever reason, sometimes we might feel a little bit embarrassed or ashamed of our faith, or people coming into our church and like, oh no, what, people are going to be weird, is going to put them off. Whereas now we're online, people can just click on and off whenever they fancy. So I feel like this has been a great time for people in general to just connect online with churches. And it's amazing how last year, I don't know the exact stats, but in terms of people searching, tens of thousands of people were putting into Google, how do I pray? And so I feel like this is a time and a season where people are looking for answers, they're looking for support, they're looking for that hope, because this is a time of despair for many people, and lives are being lost, and businesses are being lost, and communities are being fractured because of the pandemic. And so it's great to see that so much is going online now. It's so much more accessible to different people. But I've loved looking out at my own church community and seeing how we've been able to support people throughout this season as well. Because general life is still happening alongside the pandemic. People are still getting sick of other things that aren't COVID related. Traumas and dramas happening in people's lives regardless of the pandemic. So there was a lady who, unfortunately, her house caught on fire and she lost everything just before Christmas. So this is, you know what it's like as a mum, Shah. You get everything in prepared for Christmas. You've got the presents in the wardrobe hidden so the kids can't find them. You've got all the food in the fridge and getting ready for the big day. And yet the house burnt down. They lost everything. And our church has got like a charity shop on site where we've got tons of clothes and resources that we're able to outsource to give to people that need it. So we were able to to reclothe her and her family from this charity shop. We were able to go to the food bank that we have and to give them lots of food, to be able to restock ready so they could enjoy Christmas together. We were then able to give them a good sum of money to go out and buy some more Christmas presents. And so I think the church in this time has just come into its own. Yes, we've always been parts of community, been serving the community, but now I think we've realised just how much we really can help and serve people, and how people potentially now are more willing to take it as well, which is a great thing to come out of this terrible season.
What's your favourite, or like one that's standing out to you at the moment, like Bible passage?
Oh, I'm going to get it up on my phone because I do love this one. Hang on. I think I've got the Bible app and I've highlighted in lots of different translations because I just like reading it in all the different ways. But I want to make sure that I don't misquote it because I do love this one. Hang on, let me find it. It's in the New Testament. And it's from Timothy. Hang on, here we go. Yes, 1 Timothy 4:12. Now, if I read it in a translation that we sort of more readily recognise, you'll know which one it is. And it's this one. It says, it's very appropriate actually. Don't let anyone look down on you because you are young, but set an example for the believers in speech, in conduct, in love, in faith, and in purity. So that touched on all the things talking about earlier, not kind of giving into all the social norms. As Christians, we have to set an example to our other Christian friends who might be struggling, but also to those that are out in the world, in what we do, in how we love, in the faith that we have, and in our purity. But I've also highlighted it in the Passion Translation. Now, this is a translation that I've only sort of started reading recently, but my goodness, it just, a bit like the Message translation, it really brings it alive again, which I get very excited about. Sometimes it can be a bit tricky to read your Bible. So I find that if I either buy a new Bible, I feel more inclined to read it. Or if I read a new translation, it kind of comes alive again. So there's a couple of tips there. But in the Passion Translation, this one is particularly good. And don't be intimidated by those who are older than you, because sometimes I feel like we can be. Simply be an example they need to see by being faithful and true in all that you do. Speak the truth and live a life of purity and authentic love. Oh, I love that, authentic love, as you remain strong in your faith. And I think that's really encouraging because we can often feel intimidated by people that are older than us. We think, oh, they know better, they've been around longer than us. Or older people look down on us because we're younger. Oh, they're just the young people, they're just the youth, they're just the kids. Oh, they don't know what they're talking about. I'm like, hang on a minute, I've got something really cool to say. I think you do need to hear this, because sometimes older generations can get so set in their ways that they then are blinkered to what's going on around them. They just see it in one way, whereas we can come in with fresh eyes and this new vigor, and actually we can set a new example to them. And so that's been quite encouraging to me over the years. And even now, like, I still see myself as being a young person. I know that I'm not, but I'm still young at heart. And I'm still younger than other generations. Do you see what I mean? So that verse, that is still relevant to me as it would be relevant to you as well. So that is a good one.
Have you got any new thing coming up for you to be doing? Obviously, you present Songs of Praise, and obviously you front the Alpha course. Is there anything else that's in the making?
So it's been very difficult to film things during the pandemic, as you can imagine. Lots of my work, in fact, about 98% of the jobs that I had lined up last year were cancelled just like that as the pandemic hit. The only things I could really do were voiceover work, because that was socially distanced and there were no other people involved apart from me and a sound engineer. So it has been a tricky year for me work-wise. I've been able to do a few bits. So there was something that went out on CB just before Christmas. We did our Christmas panto. But in terms of this year, I was supposed to be going back into studio now, in fact, for filming Swashbuckle again, that was cut short when the pandemic hit in March last year. We got finished and sent home. So that series hasn't been completed yet. I have, like you say, been working on songs of praise as well, and I have just had a phone call from my agent about doing another film for them in the next couple of weeks, which would be great. And actually, if I do get to do it, it'd be really good. It's good to kind of keep my skills sharp, so I don't just forget how to present. But I did actually just before Christmas film something that is coming out in February. It's from the 24/7 prayer movement, and last year, the year before, they put out a new prayer resource called the Prayer Course, about 5-week course helping people to pray. And well, this is a very timely course now that we've just refilmed, because we're now doing the Prayer Course Part 2, but it's looking at unanswered prayer, because sometimes our prayers don't appear to be answered. And so this is another course for us to journey through understanding what it is that God might be saying to us in these seasons where we feel like our prayers are just bouncing off the ceiling and we're not getting any response. And it's with Pete Greig, who is the author of God on Mute. And so we journey through that book. And God's timing is so perfect, because actually I was reading that book as the pandemic hit last year, not knowing what was going to happen, and also not knowing that then they would ask me longer than that, about 8 months later, to then be filming a course about unanswered prayer based on that book. So God always knows, doesn't he? So yeah, that's coming out in February, I believe, mid-February that's coming out. I think just as Lent starts, I think it is, so probably around like the 15th, 16th of February, I think that'll be coming out. So that'll be an online free resource that you can take part in. And then other work, I've just had another confirmation about a job for CBeebies, something that was postponed from last year. I'm not sure if I can say what it is yet, but it will be another opportunity for me to be on screen doing something that I'm not normally doing. So pray for me, because I'm going to be out of my comfort zone, stretching my skills as a performer, not even as a presenter.
Right.
So yeah, that's being filmed in Leeds, I believe, in March, and then I don't know when it'll come out. Maybe late spring. Watch this space.
Oh, bless you. So going to church on a Sunday, I mean, are you able to church most Sundays now, being in this lockdown and being with your church family?
Yeah, so like every other church, our church went online in March last year, and it was initially being broadcast from our lead pastor's bedroom. Him and his wife would just set up a camera and broadcast live from there. And I was asked to put my pirate gear on and do some Bible stories for the children that would then get dropped into that service. So I was able to do some stuff for them then. But then we've managed to put together a small TV studio now in our church, where we're able to socially distance from one another. It's a very small team of people that are able to go into broadcast live on a Sunday morning. Occasionally we have live worship, although being in Tier 4 and in national lockdown again now, we've now started pre-recording the worship. So we'll be in the actual church centre and we'll be introducing it and praying, and then we'll link into a pre-recorded worship set, and then it'll come back to us to give the notices, and then we'll have somebody who's preaching live, usually in the actual venue as well. So we are able to do that, and we're also hosting Alpha live as well Sunday evenings at the minute, which is great. And it's not just for our church. We've got about 10 other churches in the local area that are also tuning in to use us as a resource, and also to bless their church communities, and for us to bless them, so they don't have to worry about putting on an Alpha course. They can literally just flick on the computer, watch it, and then enter a Zoom room to then have a chat afterwards. Easy peasy. So yeah, we have been doing a lot of stuff with church online, and it's it's started to become just how we do church now, isn't it? And it's not the same as doing face to face, but God is everywhere. So it doesn't matter whether we are in a church building together, or whether we are sat at home in our pajamas, or whether we're on a Zoom call where we've kind of got our slippers on, just saying. Like that's just what we do now, isn't it?
How do you reach your neighbourhood around you for people who aren't Zooming? What are there any particular things you do with your church? Yeah,
so all of the church services are filmed. So they can either be accessed online, but then still some of our church community don't have online facilities. So they're all then burnt onto a DVD and they get delivered round to the families that aren't able to watch it. There's also lots of other things that we're able to do. So we've all been kind of buddied up with people in the church. And so we've been buddied up with a lady who we're like pen pals with. So we actually write to one another, old school, and we would just send letters and things so we can connect in that way. And then there's a team of people who are like the phone evangelists. They will actually ring round to people every week and just have a chat and check that people are doing okay. So there are other ways, apart from technology, of connecting in with people.
It's more like, is there anything, I want you both to answer this and I'll also answer it as well, that God has like said to you recently or like spoken into your life recently, be like, oh, that's cool.
Shall I go first?
Yeah, you go first.
Okay. For me, it's all about stripping everything back and resting and finding him in the stillness. And life was busy, wasn't it? It was busy. And we would just try and do this, that, and the other, and please everybody all the time. And often putting ourselves on the back burner, especially as a mom, you put everyone else first, and then you're the last one to look after yourself. And so this season, I really feel like God is just saying, just chill, just rest, be still, and know that I am God, and allow the stillness to replenish you, because I'm normally bounding around and full of energy. I'm around people all the time, and actually that's great because that's the extrovert side of me. But then I equally have an introverted side where I just need to retreat and have a bit of time to myself. And for some people that is solitude and just being on their own and quiet and peaceful. For me, it's like painting my nails and just chilling out, listening to some music. Or yesterday I was putting together a little care package to send to a friend of mine for her birthday, and I spent hours just quietly wrapping up little prezzies and just putting them nicely in a box. Like, you know, there's just being still, just slowing down, taking time to cut sellotape properly without just ripping it with my teeth, like something small like that. Just taking the time. And like now I'm going to go off and prepare something for dinner for tonight, rather than just nipping to Lidl and go and buy them all pre-made. I'm going to home make some meatballs. Like, wow, yeah, come on. They're going to deliver us. It gets better for it. I know what I've put into it, so I don't have to put so much salt and additives and things into it. So just being still and just stripping everything back. And that's kind of been forced upon us in a way, but I'm not seeing that as being a negative thing. I'm seeing it as being a positive thing, and trying to now incorporate this into my routine, into my rhythm. So then this is how I am just going forwards.
So very much like you, God's definitely been stripping back. We did a retreat. So a few years ago, I did a Forge course, and we meet up every 6 weeks or so and just get together. And we had a retreat together just before Christmas. And God gave me a picture. He gave me a picture. If you look at the garden at the moment, it's just soil. There's nothing to see, and it looks very dead. He said, but don't look at the soil at the top. He said, look what's underneath. He said, because you've got the buds underneath, the bulbs underneath, that are gaining sustenance by going deeper, by feeding, by being watered. And he said, in your due time, then you will see, you know, the shoot come above the ground. So basically, like you, I've just got to be still, be dormant, but not be dormant in a way of not doing anything. He wants me to go deeper with him. And obviously, I've been looking for where life has taken me. And I'm hungry to know more about him. So I think, yes, studying, doing something more deeper, growing with him is what he really wants me to do in this season. Because actually what he's got for me to do, I need that feeding first before I can go above the soil. So that he gave to me like 5th of December, and it's really like, okay. I think because I was, as you mentioned earlier, I was so active in my midwifery career, and I was in a stage of blooming that I don't feel I'm doing anything now. But that picture just gave me that, I know where you are, I know what you're doing, and it's in my timing and not your timing. So for me, that's spoken volumes. And do you know me?
Well, I've had this like massive thing about Be Still for quite some time, and I like didn't really acknowledge it till like recently, and then like I kind of had like what would you call it? It wasn't an epiphany. It was like realised,
revelation.
yeah, sort of moment. And basically, I kind of realised how much God loves me and us, and the fact that He made literally the whole earth for us. And like the fact that the bit that like sticks out is the fact He like put that certain tree that like Jesus died on for us, like knowing what was going to happen. Like He chose the tree which made the cross for which He died because He loves us. And it just sort of blew my mind. And I was like, whoa, He like loves us like a lot, not like a little bit, like more than your parents kind of love you kind of a lot. And yeah, it just kind of was like kind of be still and acknowledge like how important and how much He loves us as like people and His children, and how much He wants a relationship with us, and how much He wants to know us more and like grow with Him in a sense of growing underneath and getting deeper with Him.
So true. There's so many truths in that. I think it's helpful to hear that, isn't it? Because sometimes we can just sort of take our faith for granted a little bit. We just go through the motions, perhaps, or we live out our parents' faith because they're the ones that have dragged us along to church, and yet we don't experience it deeply and fully for ourselves. And when you do, like you said, Naomi, you just get that sense of revelation for you. It's like the penny drops. Oh, that's what it's all about. And that is the only thing you can get from reading your Bible. So yes, we might have this book in front of us that has been a bit dusty or used as a doorstop or got lots of empty mugs on it beside your bed. It might be, but actually there is truth in that book. There is life in that book, in the fact that when you read it, it brings you life. It helps you to get those revelations from God. It helps you to realize that, yes, it might have been buried deep under the soil, but that is when, like you say, you're drawing out all the nutrients, and now it is time for that to come to light and to see those new buds. And that's when you can see fresh things, exciting things happening in your world. And it doesn't happen overnight, doesn't always happen very quickly, but it will happen because God's timing is always perfect.
Thank you, Jem. It's been great talking to you. Oh, it's been ages, but it's so lovely. Anything else you want to say, Naomi?
Let's hope this pandemic ends because I want to see you.
Sending you a big hug.
Oh, sending you one back.